Hi, I'm Susan Cawley, and welcome to You're Not Alone, Surviving Your Child's Disability. Whether it is work, education, sports, or leisure activities, we should be able to participate and feel part of the community. As such, the disabled should have the same rights, privileges, and opportunities. Speaking on community inclusion are Alan White, Director of Residential Alternatives, and Paula Aisi, Director of Community Connections, both from TIL Inc. Hi, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, what is meant when we talk about community inclusion for people with disabilities?
I think that our view of the including people into the community is having them be a real part of all aspects of their community, whether it's social activities, church communities, educational opportunities, recreational, and availability of independent living situations.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you have anything to add?
Well, that was a great putting it into a nutshell, Alan. But as you said with your intro, it's being able to be included in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you want to be included in.
Right.
I mean, the whole idea of inclusion, starting from the educational aspect into your adult life, is people want to be included in what they want to be included in. No one wants to feel
well, you can't
excluded.
Force people.
No, you can't force people at all. Things have to come somewhat naturally, and they have to make for a good fit. Mm-hmm. Everything isn't for everybody. And that's a notion that I repeat a lot because people don't quite get that, oh, there's lots of things out there, but is it a match for you?
Right. Now, how would you describe an integrated community? I mean, as far as, have we achieved it? Where are we going with it?
I think we've come a long way. I think that from my point of view, because I do residential services, which we really do a partnership with all the departments within the agency, whether it's vocational, whether it's recreational or social inclusion in a variety of things. What we look at is independent living situations that are a part of the community, whether it's in an apartment, whether it's in a home, in a typical neighborhood. We're looking for the same types of opportunities for our people who have many types of disabilities. Mm-hmm. So things like being close to public transportation or grocery stores or anything, whether you have a disability or not, they're the necessities of life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you think are the benefits of community inclusion for a person with a disability?
Well, a person with disabilities is a person first.
Right.
And so it goes back to what do people want?
Mm-hmm.
And people want it to be a part of life. They want to have family connections. They want to have connections within whatever their living situation is, whether it's in a group home or in an apartment building, and to be able to be accessing what they want. You talked about being able to, use transportation, and it's being able to get to your job. Maybe you're someone who is being picked up by a van, but if you're not and you're dependent upon public transportation, these are the aspects that are important to any young adult going off into the world.
Right.
So we work a lot with trying to think about the disabilities in a way that you have to address them because it may require some certain adapting or techniques, but it's the person first.
Right.
That really has to be the way that you're thinking. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that the community at large yet has come that far that they see the person first.
Do you see still a large possibility, a large population being discriminated against? I mean, do you think that there's still out there, people who won't give a disabled person a job, or?
I'm sure they're there. They're not going to announce that they're there because we have the ADA and many other things in place. I think we have a greater acceptance. Alan and I have been in this field for over 30 years, each of us,
Yes.
and we've seen improvement, but there's still a long ways to go.
Oh, yeah, I
Um,
agree with that.
Not every neighborhood wants a group home in their neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
And that resistance is still there now as it was 30 years ago. It's just people go about it in a different way because political correctness has come into play.
Right.
So it's, it's not a good thing to say out loud unless you have a band of people coming together who then say, as a neighborhood, we think this isn't the best thing for our neighborhood. That hasn't changed, but we have plowed ahead regardless of that because we know that everyone has the right to live wherever, in whatever community that is chosen. So with that said, what has changed over the years is I believe more people are trying to understand what it means for people with disabilities who are in the community. And it comes with greater visibility. I mean, once upon a time, a lot of people growing up, they only knew, oh, those kids in the special ed classroom.
I remember that when I was growing up, that you don't even talk to the people in the disability classroom.
And I think that there has to be a feeling of being comfortable. And you're not comfortable with things that you don't know. So if you're dealing with a person who has a lot of multiple involvements, who is perhaps in a wheelchair, being assisted by staff, it's very clear that there's a lot of things they're not able to do on their own. You don't quite know what to make of it. Children are the best. Children will ask what people know you're not supposed to do, or they'll stare, which we've been taught that staring isn't polite, which it isn't because it makes people uncomfortable. On the other hand, though, the kids are staring because they're trying to take it in. What is that person all about? And I love when a little kid says, how come they're not talking? How come this? How come that? Because then you can answer the question. And you can even say, honestly, I don't know. I don't know sometimes. I just know that this is the way it is. But I know that that she likes all the same things that you do. It's about bringing in the common denominator. Oh, you like going to the movies? She likes going to the movies too. What's your favorite movie? Oh, I bet she's seen it too. It's making something familiar while the parent is there horrified that the child has started asking these questions that you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to hands off, move away from the person with the disability because you don't know. And it's like, well, let's break down some of those barriers so that we do know, so that we can have something in common. And because all you see is the differences.
Well, I think children in general are very forgiving, very, curious, and I don't think adults have that same
I think
attitude.
Kids are more interested on what you like that I like, that they're searching for those similarities, where as adults we're all viewing the differences rather than the similarities. If I see your child, playing with dolls or trucks or something, the people we're dealing with may be sitting in a wheelchair just watching it, clearly fascinated with the trucks or the dolls. And the kids are the ones that are picking that up. The parents are looking at the difficulties and the challenges. Oh my gosh, they're in a wheelchair, these types of things. So it's really getting people to look at the similarities rather than the differences, and people's abilities rather than their disabilities.
Right. That's very true. So why is it important to ask a person with a disability about their hopes, dreams, and their personal goals?
Well, I, again, help adults and kids who have just graduated from high school. I work with many people on the autism spectrum and with multiple disabilities. And what I try to do is get them to feel that they really do have some control of the rest of their life. As a parent, we all have our ideals of how we see our child's life, whether they have a disability or they don't have a disability. Sometimes when I always meet with a parent with their child. I then meet with the parents separately, and then I meet with the individual independently. The ideas that I get from both can be very different ideals. We're also looking at ages as well. A 20-year-old on the autism spectrum may have a vision for themselves, and their parents are going, that will never happen. Because
yeah, but they're not as
looking at
open. Parents
correct.
are not as open to
And
things, and it's hard for them.
absolutely.
I mean, even myself, I have two disabled children. They're autistic, and I know that I'm even to blame for that. That sometimes I say, well, you're never going to be able to do that, and it's not true, because I've seen my oldest daughter develop skills that I never thought she could do. And so, that's an interesting
And I
thing.
think that, one of the things that we look at is providing those opportunities. One of the things I think with people with disabilities in the educational system, and Paula and I were talking a little bit about this, is giving people opportunities to be successful, but there's also a lot of teaching that goes along with not being successful. It's providing those opportunities. How many times when you tell your child, no, you can't, no, you can't, the more you tell them no, the more they are insisting that that's what they want to do. And it's giving them the opportunity that maybe we believe that you're not going to be successful, but they need the opportunity to show themselves that they can't be successful or that they could be successful.
Well, I think, too, that the definition of being successful is different for the parent as for the child.
Correct.
Yes, that's definitely true.
Very different.
I think from a parent point of view, you're looking for your child to be safe. Number one priority. And from there, the safety and the experiences have to be worked as a team to provide those opportunities in a safe environment.
Right. And how can a parent encourage their child with a disability to explore their interests and their goals?
You have to be able to be willing to take a little bit of a risk sometimes. I do think from a parent's viewpoint, you don't want your children to fail.
Right.
It hurts you to think that they would fail at anything.
Right.
But if you don't take a chance on some things, you just don't know. And you have to find a way that if something does fail, it's not the end of the world. We all have failures. You grow from failures. But I do believe that over the years, there's been a feeling that we protect people with disabilities from opportunities where they might fail. Why is it worse for them to fail than for someone else to fail? I think you still have to have a good safety net on how you go forward after something hasn't worked out. It's very important to know how to go forward and don't get stuck on, okay, so that didn't work. So what? What are we trying next? And I think that's a scary avenue for parents. So I think that there's still some education needed for all. When we have someone come into our services, we know that our first priority is that we are serving that individual. But the reality is, when they come with a family who cares and is a part of their team, we're really serving the whole family. And it's a fine line, because we're serving the individual. That's our goal. That's what we're funded for. That's our priority. But the whole is important too, because it's a unit. The family and the person that we're serving, they're a unit. And we do try to approach it that way. So when we're trying to find out what someone might like, if they have an interest in travel, and right now we have a big high interest ourselves as an agency, because we have found how much people love to travel. But traveling, when you have certain differences than the rest of the world, does some require a little bit of different planning.
Yes.
And we're trying to be mindful of that, because you can go off and you can go anywhere you want.
Right.
But we have an organization, I don't know if you're familiar with it, called
No.
Springboard.
No, I haven't heard about that.
Springboard is for adults, from young adults upward, who generally share the common denominator of learning disabilities or learning differences, as we're using that referencing now. Frequently people with high-end autism. And it's a social club where they really have peers. Because a lot of folks are successful in a lot of other avenues of their life. They now have a good housing opportunity. Work has maybe gelled a little bit for them, but they don't have the social. They still need an exclusive club in that way where someone understands them like nobody else does, because people are like them.
Right.
And no judgment
And
zone.
and the judgment factor is so reduced. It it's normal judgment.
Right.
As anybody would be with. We all
Yes.
judge each other. Let's
Yes.
not take that away. But they're not judged because of this difference that the rest of the world sees them as.
Yeah. So let's go back to something that you said. How can parents plan and promote inclusion for their child with a disability?
I think that the first thing that I like to talk with families about, because I work both privately with families to develop services as well as public funding, is to really look at what their goals are and trying to think of them as people. Many times what I find is that we're first putting it in perspective that when you're coming to TIL and your child is a teenager, 18, with the autism spectrum from the Department of Developmental Services now, they may be eligible for services at the age of 18. What we're finding is that we need to look at them as, number one, they're teenagers. So everything, it doesn't really evolve and revolve around their disability.
Right.
Sometimes it's just being a teenager or a 20-year-old and the ideas that they have. So many of them want to be quote unquote normal.
Right.
And so it's putting that normalcy into their lives that they are really looking for.
Right. Now, what about children? I mean, the younger children. How do you plan for inclusion for them?
One of the things, TIL also is the autism center for one of the regions in the state, and they have a group called Social Skills in the City, and they actually meet in downtown Crossing in Boston or various areas and neighborhoods of the city, or in one of our day services out in Billerica. And what they do is they do things like travel training, they go shopping, they go to different stores, they may explore downtown, go on the Freedom Trail, and exposing them. We're actually developing that more, that as the kids come to transition age, they're focusing in on actual independent functional skills. Going to the laundromat. How do you use a washer? How do you use a dryer? How do you go to the grocery store and buy the things you need for a meal?
So basically, do you think that a parent, when a child is younger, that they should expose them to as much as possible?
Yes. As a parent of 2 kids with learning disabilities, we all know it's easier to do it for them rather than fighting with them. And that's, I guess, with any teenager. But it's teaching those skills. What we do find is that when we're asking about independent living skills, parents do say, oh, they can do that. What I ask is, how many times do you say, did you clean your room? Did you comb your hair? Did you brush your teeth?
Right.
Those are all cues. So really, are they really independent in those things? And it's it's giving them those responsibilities within the household first, and the expectations that they have responsibilities that come along with independence.
Right. So currently, can the community provide in opportunities for like socialization, education, employment, housing, any of these subjects, but maybe we can just take one and talk about that? Like, for instance, employment. What can the community offer as far as employment for these? I mean, is there anything special that people should do in the community?
Well, it goes back. The more community members that have gotten comfortable and have had more exposure to people with disabilities are more likely to take that chance on a hire because they have a greater comfort level and they have seen success themselves. And I suppose it's being supportive of the community members on they need to take some risk and take some chances.
Right.
Everyone isn't going to be successful. That doesn't work that way in the world at large, and we are still part of the world at large. And we reflect those same failures and successes. So with an employer, it's getting that first person in there so that they can see, okay, so that person works a little differently. I didn't really have to do that much accommodation, and I have a worker now who's never out, who's always on time, and all these qualities that are so important in the work ethic. And I didn't have to do that much to have a great employee. So it's getting the word out and having more people that have taken that little opportunity, that chance to, and given that opportunity.
And it is getting that change of perception of the individuals with a disability. They are people first, and what they're either visually seeing, whether it's a physical disability or someone who, for example, on the high-functioning autism spectrum, there are no outward signs that anyone has a disability,
Right.
those nonverbal learning disabilities, where until you're really talking to the individual and you're sort of getting that sense that there's some deficits, what we should be doing is providing the tools to be able to present yourself and your positive attributes and what you are able to really be doing, what abilities. We have people who, can do data processing and who are amazing, or
Wow.
can stick to a task, and given a 2 or 3 step task, and that's what they're responsible for, and show that they can be successful. We have people who have never missed a day of work or
Wow.
never a minute late. We sometimes have to send people home because they come to work sick because heaven forbid that you
Right, they
miss
miss a
a
day.
day of work.
Yeah.
And you can't teach those values. They are ingrained in the people, and those are really the successes.
Now, what about housing, for instance? What type of things are available? What opportunities are there?
Well, there are many different types of situations that we have. We have what's adult family care, which some people do also get while they're living at home. It's the ability to get financial support for those extra things that an individual with a disability may need. We also have the Department of Developmental Services has really just started funding people on the autism spectrum for individual community supports. So what we've been able to try and do is develop supported environments. We own an apartment building, and everyone has all different types of disabilities. The common denominator was that their personalities mesh and they like each other. And that's how I develop residential services.
Now, how, I mean, what about integrated services, though? I mean, integrated housing, where there are some disabled and some not disabled.
With the individual community supports, we're able to help people find their own apartments. It may be in a regular apartment building. We're actually going to be developing some apartments within a new construction in Charlestown, in which there's 61 units, and we will have access to some of the apartments there, so it will be part of the community. And we really focus a lot on getting people to be living in, just regular apartments. What some of our programs are training grounds is a better way to do it, where you're providing those teaching tools to learn those basic independent skills, paying bills, cooking, cleaning, so they can then move to the next step of being independent.
What about recreation? What type of opportunities are there as far as like sports or any type of recreation?
Well, that's
in
a
the
whole mixed
community?
bag, and that goes back to depending upon what the person is looking for.
Mm-hmm.
There are all sorts of things a person who does have a certain skill level can join in the community at large. You can go out and you can find a local softball team, you can find a local bowling league, but what we have seen over the years is that when some of our individuals have joined these, what we would consider a regular community team or activity, they haven't always felt like they fit. People are very nice to them. They don't necessarily have a peer feeling. And that peer feeling is so important. People aren't always able to articulate that. So there is a need for, and continues to be a need for, special needs teams and activities. And there's quite a number of them out there, not as many as there should be and could be.
Right.
I oversee a number, I have 5 different bowling leagues in different geographic areas.
Mm-hmm.
I can't take in any more people. I have no open slots. You have to go onto waiting lists.
Wow.
I run a track program that has a similarity to Special Olympics, which is big out there and works for a lot of people. But for my own group of people that I serve, I have people that have a real greater range of ability.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a walking track program that leads not to a Special Olympic event, but it leads to something that's called Till Games. And we're in our 21st year, and it's integrated in a different way. If you were to walk upon the Reggie Lewis Center on the Saturday in September, which is when Till Games is held, at first glance you'd think, oh, this is Special Olympics. But then you look a little further and you see that we have a lot of non-disabled people participating, especially kids. I have 30 or 40 kids participating who have no disabilities at all.
Right.
And I'm so happy that they're there because they're on an equal footing with somebody who may be using a wheelchair or a walker. And I like that it's all mixed up and that they can see different things. And again, going back to the travel club, you don't need a special needs travel club if you don't need one. But the reality is our folks thrive and are more successful when you are in a group, with a group of people that has taken special care on funny little things that somebody might not think about. Just having arrangements of where your pre-planned points of meeting are.
Right.
And it's the little details that lead to the greatest success. And we see that with everything. And
we also try to make as much integration as possible, in which with our travel, what we're doing is providing the opportunities not only for the individuals with the disabilities, but we're pairing them with our own staff people and providing them opportunities to travel internationally with individuals and on an educational journey, both to look at services around the world and sightseeing opportunities.
Like you just
and
don't
learning.
go to Italy, which they did last year, but you go to Italy and you've already had built into your itinerary that you're going to a restaurant and you're going to work with the chefs and cook the dinner.
That's great.
I mean, it's a little different aspect, and it makes it, going back to the educational part of it.
Okay, well, we're almost done, but what still needs to be achieved in order for society to be successful in community inclusion?
The attitude still needs to continue to be worked upon and worked with everybody. And it is looking at a person who has disabilities as the person, period. And then anything else that is necessary, whether you need to hold a door open for somebody or whether a person needs to be asked questions in a form of yes and no, because that's the only way they can answer back.
Right.
It's who's that person first, and the realization from the community that everyone has the same feelings, whether they're able to express them the same or not.
Okay.
And for residential, I think affordable housing, and most importantly, accessible housing. People who have ambulation issues, where they have accessible housing to be able to access bathrooms and get into the building without a great struggle, and people accepting of what I call quirkiness rather than a disability.
That's true.
Understanding the differences rather than looking at it as a negative, that they're just
people.
We're all different.
And if we can get that message out to employers, if more employers who have been so successful with employees who have disabilities could really spread the word and talk to other employers about, you want a good employee, this is the person you should be taking a chance on.
Right. Well, I thank you both for being here today. I hope you enjoyed talking with us. People with disabilities should have more control over their lives, limiting their isolation and fostering a sense of belonging at home and in the community. Join us again next time on You're Not Alone, Surviving Your Child's Disability.